Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the farm. Ruby and I are up with the chickens this morning. We've decided that since we've got all of our sausage making stuff out from making our linguiça yesterday, that we're going to go ahead and make some German sausage because we've got more casings and all that. So we're going to get that done today. So if you're interested in making that, stick around. Kelly just left for work, so Ruby followed her to the door. So we had to go get some more pork. We got plenty of beef, but I needed pork for this recipe. Our German sausage calls for 1 part of pork for every 2 parts of beef. So we're going to make a 15-pound recipe. I've got 10 pounds of beef out, and this is about 7 pounds of pork, so we'll have a little bit of this left over to make something else with. But for right now, we've got to get this opened up, get it trimmed down to where it'll fit into the throat of our little KitchenAid grinder here. We have a lot bigger grinder out in the meat processing area out in the barn, but it's not worth for this little bit. We'll just use the KitchenAid grinder. So let's get started on this meat. This is a bone-in roast. That's all we had, so we should end up with about 5 pounds. Get this thing lopped off a few directions and get this bone out of here. That's about as clean as you're going to get that bone. It'll fight you every inch of the way. It's a lot easier when you cook and pulled pork. That bone will just pull right out when you're done. So now we just got to get this meat to where it will go through our grinder. So we're just going to cut it into strips that will fit down the throat. About like that. Okay, we're going to start grinding our meat. One of my favorite things to do. Alright, we got done grinding our pork. A pro tip to get the meat that's left out in the grinder is to get some ice cubes and run a couple ice cubes through there to push that meat out. Okay, there's our ground pork. I love having a little meat grinder because it's very hard to find just plain ground pork in the store anymore. They always season it up. So we're going to start getting our dry mixture together, and then we'll weigh our meat for our recipe. The recipe for this German sausage could not be any easier. I have it split up into kind of 5 pounds increments. Well, not quite, but this is 5, this is 15, 12 and a half, 25 pounds, 50 pounds. Super easy recipe. Now this recipe comes from my buddy Matt out in California. Their family, years ago, his grandfather used to order this sausage from a butcher shop that was 2 hours south of them in Fresno. The place was called Oberg's Butcher Shop or Meat Locker, Oberg's Meat Locker. So Matt's grandpa would call down there and said, hey, I'd like to order some sausage. I want like 20 pounds. So he would send a check down to the business, and about the time his check got there, the sausage would be pretty much done. So the owner of the butcher shop used to put the sausage on the Greyhound bus. And the bus would go north up to the town where they lived, and then when it would arrive, the people at the bus station would call Matt's grandpa and said, hey, we have a package for you here. And he would go down and pick up the sausage at the Greyhound bus station. Pretty cool. Matt says he's got really fond memories of getting that sausage with his grandpa, and he knew that was what for supper, and he really enjoyed it. So he's coming out to visit here last part of March, so we'll keep some of this and we'll share it with him when he comes out. So we're doing 15 pounds. So it calls for 7.5 tablespoons of kosher salt. There's 4 tablespoons in a quarter cup. So we can speed that process up a little bit. There's a quarter cup. So we just got to go a 1/2 tablespoon shy on this next quarter cup. See, about right there. And we got 2 tablespoons of black pepper. Now the recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of garlic, but we're just going to go ahead with 4 with our quarter cup here. And that is all the ingredients. Pretty simple, other than the ice water. We're going to add 3 cups of ice water to this mix. There's our 3rd cup of ice water. So we can start measuring our meat in now. We've got our bowl on our meat scale zeroed out. So we're going to measure out 5 pounds of this pork. Trying to get the fattiest portions out of the bowl here. There's 3 pounds, almost 4. Put that into our pan. Let's see how much pork we have left. Looks like we got a couple pounds left in here. So we got about 2.5 pounds left here. So we'll keep this to make some meatloaf with or something like that. I like adding ground pork to my meatloaf. It makes it pretty juicy. So we've measured in our 10 pounds of hamburger to go with our 5 pounds of pork. Now it's time to mix. I like to put a paper or a towel underneath my bowl because these stainless steel bowls will mar up your counter a little bit. So now we just got to get in here with our hands and mix this up. My friend and I out in California used to do this. We had a tradition every New Year's Day. We'd get together for a sausage fest, as I called it. And we'd buy up a bunch of pork shoulder or pork butt that's always on sale around that time of the year. You can get it for less than $2 a pound usually. I remember back in the day it was like 98 cents a pound. But you can buy the bone-in stuff a little bit cheaper than the boneless. And we got together and made a whole bunch of sausage. We'd make a whole bunch of different recipes. We'd bust out the big grinder. We'd grind it all up, hundreds of pounds of meat. And some of it we would stuff like we're doing with this. And some of it we just use as bulk sausage. We just put it in a quart Ziploc bag and then flatten it all out nice and flat. We put like a pound in a quart bag, flatten it out and put it in the freezer. And then like Italian sausage, I wouldn't stuff because I'd make spaghetti and stuff with that. We'd put it in those bags. And breakfast sausage, I wouldn't stuff. And then you just pull that flat bag out of the freezer. You can take a big chef's knife like this one here and just cut it into like 4 pieces and throw it right in the skillet. You don't even have to thaw it out. So it was a quick way to get sausage on the table right out of the freezer without thawing. But this German sausage we would always stuff. But it goes a lot faster when you don't have to stuff it, because basically you're done. You just put it in the bag. So you don't need fancy equipment, folks, to make sausage. And I've got all kinds of good recipes. Look at my playlist for our meat processing playlist. We've got a bunch of different recipes in there. And I can actually show you a page that we have that's got all of our, most of our popular recipes on it. It's got all the recipes. So I'll show you that before the video's up. And you can make your own sausage. It's super easy if you're not stuffing it. Here's that, the other recipes I was telling you about. There's the breakfast sausage there. And then the chorizo above that. And then the Italian sausage for 1 pound, 5 pound, 10 pounds, or 20 pounds. All right, we're at a point where we can start stuffing our stuffing can full of meat. Now, a lot of the old Portuguese guys that I was around all my life, they never used recipes, which I understand that good cooks don't need recipes, but sometimes I think there's a need for them, because we used to get together yearly, way back in the day, for what's called a matanza, which is processing all your hogs, killing the hogs and processing them, cutting, wrapping, all that. And we would make like blood sausage and linguiça and stuff like that. Well, because the older people never used recipes, in fact, they'd yell at you if you tried to measure something, or you don't need to do that, get out of the way. But the recipes came out different every year. Kind of like vintages of wine. You know, you got certain years where the wine's a little better. Well, it was the same thing with all their recipes. Every now and then you'd nail it, and you'd get a really good batch. You're like, man, that's good. And then the next year, there'd be too much of something, and it just wouldn't taste right, and you've got 50 to 100 pounds of stuff that you just really don't enjoy. So if you want to be able to duplicate it, write it down and keep making it, adjust it till you get it just right to where it comes out really good. And if you got it written down, you can duplicate it, and it'll come out really good every time. Now, I apply a lot of that to just my basic cooking, but any good cook can eyeball stuff if you're just cooking supper or something like that, because you've made those recipes enough where you can get by with it. But big recipes like this, write them down. Especially if they're like good family recipes, so the next generation who doesn't know how to eyeball stuff can make it and continue on the tradition. So you can see this is a 20-pound stuffer, and we've got 15 pounds of mixture, and it's still probably not going to all fit in here. So whenever you're buying sausage making equipment, keep that in mind. If you're going to buy a stuffer, get a larger one than what you think you need, because years ago I bought a 5-pound stuffer because I did everything in 5-pound batches, and I could only get about 3 pounds in my 5-pound stuffer. I don't know why they do that. So after we get a little bit going through here, we're going to have to shove the rest of the mix in here. We're going to have to back it back out, which isn't that hard, but just annoying. This is supposed to be a 20-pound stuffer. It should fit 20 pounds of meat. Here's some pictures of us making sausage back in the day. I think this was 2002. Matt and I stuffing some sausage. That's my dad in the background. My little 5-pound stuffer that only holds about 3 pounds. That's Steve and my dad packaging some sausage up. Doing some vacuum sealing. Me barking out orders. Cooking up some sausage on a camp stove that we just made. Mixing up some spices. That's Matt's mom in the background there. Matt mixing up a big batch. Matt's dad on the right. Fun times. Okay, our sausage tube canister is all loaded. We need to load some casings. So we'll put a little olive oil spray on that tube so we can get those casings on. So find the end of your casing and open it up like so. Put it on the end of your tube. And then just pull it on. If it starts going to one side or the other, put a little pressure down on the bottom and then pull it on, and it'll all go on. Okay, we've got most of our casing on here. These are 30 to 32 millimeter. That's the size of these casings. They're natural hog casings. You can get them several different areas. If you've got a place that carries meat processing stuff, they usually have them. Some of your farm stores will have these, but you can order them online. There's a company called Walton's, which I recommend, out of Kansas. They have really good, super long casings, so you can do a lot without having to reset. You can also get these from Sausage Maker. Now, if you don't like these type of casings, which are basically intestines from the animal, you can get what's called a collagen casing, which is still an animal product, but it's made with collagen. It's kind of like plastic, and it's edible, but it's in a form that is easier to use sometimes than this. I find that this is easier myself, but they're just long, straight, and then as you put the meat in them, they rehydrate, and the casings kind of disappear. They're still there, but I like the natural casings because they give you that nice snap when you eat them. So we're going to get our meat started coming out of our tube here, just like that. I'll put that in the bowl with the other stuff. So now we can tie off the end of our casing here. And you don't have to do this, because technically it'll stop. It won't come all the way out the end, and then you can just push it back when you're done. But I like giving it a little bit of stopper there. So we can start extruding our sausage. And we're not going to link these. We're going to do these in rounds. So I'm just going to keep right on going with this. Just holding back a little bit of pressure with my hand here. And that's what fills your sausage. You don't want to get it too full because then you'll start getting blowouts in the side of your casing. But if you don't freeze your casings, they go a lot better. They don't get a lot of blowouts. These are pretty tough. I've been putting quite a bit of pressure on them and they hold up. Now if you get a little air pocket in your sausage, when you're all done, you'll go through with a toothpick and pluck those air pockets out. All right, we got our can with the rest of the meat in there. And we've got the rest of our casing put onto our tube. Now it's really hard to believe that all the casings we use for the linguiça and all this meat and all this right here used to be all one strip of casing. Unbelievable, like probably 20 feet long. I've never seen a casing that long, but if you've got a big stuffer, like even a 50-pound or 100-pound stuffer, you wouldn't even have to stop. That's pretty crazy. So we'll get the rest of this going. All right, we've reached the bottom of our can. So we can skim this off. And then we'll stuff this meat right down through there, get the rest of it in that casing. Oh, there's my favorite vacuum. Now that we've got all this sausage stuffed, we're going through and separating it into what I call rounds. So when we smoke this and even when we cook it and store it, I'm going to store that because that about fits in a gallon-sized bag. And then we'll smoke it like this, we'll store it like this, and we'll even cook it like this when we go to cook it on the grill. We'll just throw this whole round on the grill. You see, we have 8 of our big rounds made. Some of them are bigger than the others, depending on how much we had left. Now, this won't fit in our downstairs fridge, but fortunately, this time of year in Nebraska, your garage is the same temperature as your fridge, or sometimes even colder. I left a little more meat in the canister this time, so we've got a little more tasters, and plus some we can have for breakfast burrito this morning. That's going to be yummy. So as you can see, it's getting light outside. So it's early enough in the day that sausage will have time enough to dry out. We can actually smoke that sausage this afternoon. I got a meeting to go to at lunch, and then I'll be back and we can smoke it. All right, our sausage is all dried out. We got it out here in the Masterbuilt. We're going to start rolling smoke. We've got our grill set on 200 degrees. The 2 rounds on the bottom cooked faster than everything else, so we were able to pull those off early. We still have 6 more out in the barbecue. We're going to get these bloomed and let them cool. Got our first 2 rounds cooled off and vacuum sealed. We've got 6 more to go. We took them off the grill at different times because they got up to temperature at different times. Last package. There we go. We got 8 rounds of our fantastic German sausage. So we're going to get these in the freezer. We've been making a lot of sausage lately, but we had the stuff out already, so you might as well strike where the iron's hot, they say. So hope you enjoyed this process. This is really good sausage. We're really going to enjoy this. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here at the farm.
I'm being creative. Now, if you'll excuse me, I still have some work to do.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages? Daddy, would you like some sausage?